there a countdown? There we go.
Hello and welcome to the Coding with JoeG show. I guess our reboot. My name is JoeG. I'm joined with a good friend of mine, Rich Dudley. It's been a while since I streamed. Today, I decided to pick it up since today is my last day at my current employer, and I wanted to figure it out while I'm in the job hunt, learn a couple of new things. So I put a couple of posts out there. Kubernetes was one of the things I want to learn, and good friend of mine for a long time, Rich Dudley, said, well, I want to learn that too. So we decided to get on the stream together and have you ladies and gents watch us suffer as we try to learn and figure out what Kubernetes is. Contact information is on the bottom of the screen for me, and I'll give Rich a couple minutes for him to introduce himself.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed working with you. We've been friends for 12 years now or something like that professionally. I think between the two of us, we have about half a century of technology experience. But this is a great opportunity to show that you're always new at something, and
Yeah,
this, we're gonna flounder through this together, and hopefully people will find it fun. As for me, I worked with Joe at Quicken Loans Rocket Mortgage for many years, but I've worked in different segments of different industries as a programmer, as an enterprise architect, as an enterprise data architect, and as a systems architect as well, doing a lot of work in AWS. So we've got a plan for a couple of shows here. Joe's going to deploy this stuff to Azure, and I think to wrap it up, I'm going to end up deploying some of this to AWS if we can make it work. We'll see. That's always a question sometimes. So, but I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the to however many shows it takes us to figure this out.
I guess speaking of which, I could bring up the agenda. I put a blog post on it yesterday. Here's basically what we're going to try to accomplish today. Maybe we'll get to all four of these 7 points. We'll at least kind of walk through the sample app. Now, take a sample app that I already have opened up on the screen. Then we're going to go and create a new repo for it, convert the app to use containers because right now it doesn't. And then try to figure out if we can deploy it locally. I've only installed 2 things right now, the Kubernetes and Minikube. So I don't know if there's anything else I need. I literally have just been figuring this out. And it all started by going to here on this site.
Are you sharing your screen, Joe?
No, I am not. Tell I'm out of practice. Let's see. Yeah. Let's share. Oh, there it is.
Already forgot how to do Teams.
Yeah. So let's go back and show screen. It says to do Shift 6. There it goes.
Oh.
So here's the agenda that we're going to talk about. We're going to work on local development. We're going to show a demo app. It's basically a sample app I use for a lot of the conference talks I do. We're just going to kind of create our own repo for it just because we're going to keep updating it and stuff. And then we're going to convert it to use containers because right now there are no containers. Then depending on how much time we have, we're going to try to keep this up to about an hour. We're going to start with deploying locally. Hopefully we have all the tools. I basically started off here on the Kubernetes and went to the documentation, clicked on getting started, and went with here. I downloaded Kubernetes and I installed the tools. So hopefully we have enough. So let's take a look at this sample app. I have it already installed, copied locally. So let me open up Windows Explorer. I'm going to copy it over. By the way, if you're wondering what's happening with my Windows Explorer, I am on, as you see right over here, Windows 11 Pro Insider Preview. So it's a preview version of the next version of Windows. It was literally updated yesterday. So if anything breaks, I'll blame it on Microsoft this time. It's not me. So
playing with fire.
Yeah, playing with fire. Although there was one time where I was going to a conference in India, the C# Corner conference, and I did something that no presenter should ever do. I was at the airport and I was going around, and Windows said, there's an update available. So I said update. So it was still going. I opened up the laptop on the plane. It was an 18-hour flight or something like that. So the update was still going on the plane, and I landed. Like, I hope I have a working laptop this week. Kids, never try that at home.
Yeah.
So I have all my source packages and projects on a secondary drive. I use a new thing called Dev Drive, which, if you're new to Windows 11, it's actually a very, very new feature. You go to, I did Windows I to get to system settings. Under storage, there's this new option, and storage settings, disk and volumes. There's this new thing called Dev Drives. Now, this is a optimized hard drive. I use the word hard drive loosely because it could be an SSD, but basically optimized for reading and writing. And with the new Dev Drives, it's recommended that you put things like your source code on there, things that need constant read and write access, as well as your packages. So you notice here I have, under packages, I have a NuGet folder and an npm folder. This NuGet folder, I don't know how big it is. Before I rebuilt my laptop last weekend, this directory was 31 gig. Let's see what it's at now. Oh, only 2.5 gig. It's a nice side effect of NuGet. It brings in files like crazy. If you want to read more about Dev Drive, you go here. It uses this technology, ReFS, which I think stands for Resilient File System. So it's kind of like the next version of NTFS, which is the file system that Windows uses now.
Joe, is that a separate physical drive, or is that a partition on your main hard drive?
It can be any. The laptop that I have right now doesn't have room for 2 drives unless I cut my battery size in half, which I don't want to do. So I have an SSD on this, and it's partitioned. As you see here, it's partitioned into 2, basically the C drive, which is 1.5 terabytes, and then the Dev Drive, which is the remaining like 400 and change.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. It's a separate system. You can actually even create a virtual hard disk now. So if you want to share data between different systems, like if you have VMware or Parallels, you can create a virtual disk here that you can mount in both Parallels as well as VMware, and use it with Windows directly also, and or copy it out to other drives. This is a new feature in the last version of Windows, or the Windows preview. It's pretty neat. So let's go back here to my projects folder. Oh, we got some comments here. Oh, David Wan is saying hi. Hello,
Hey, David. Great to see you, man.
It's hard to use comments. They're on the right side of my screen, so I have to just take a look every once in a while. Let's see where we go. So sample projects, you can see my project directory. It has a lot of things, all my conference talks, as well as demos I've downloaded over time. So I'm creating a copy of that directory. Let's call it, what should we call it? K8 intro.
Yeah. Now, do you have a link to this sample on GitHub for anybody who wants to try and follow along at home?
Yep. This is the sample app we're using, which let's put it in the banners. I think I already did. Nope, let's create a new banner. So this is the app we're going to clone. And then let's go and create a new repo for it now. So let's go to JoeG Wadagno. Put this plus button here. New repository. We're going to call it K8 intro, and that's available. Joe and Rich's attempt to learn Kubernetes. And one of the things you'll notice, and the same problem will happen with Rich, is when you are talking on screen, whether you're doing a presentation or not, it's really hard to type at the same time. So every once in a while, you might hear us pause as we're typing, or sometimes you'll see we type what we say, even though we want to type something else. So please forgive. Actually, I'm not going to add a README or add git ignore or a license. Typically, you would do all these as you do it, but since I'm already copying a project with an existing license and with an existing git ignore, I'm just going to leave those blank. Let's create a repository. Oh, let me go to the sample, the new folder I did, and delete this git repo.
Oh, yeah.
Or delete the repository. Otherwise, it's going to try to do the same one. Then we have this lovely text here that tells us what to do. So I'm going to open up a terminal. You notice my terminal window is going to be a little customized. If I start typing, there are autocomplete history. I can show that like how I set it up on a future stream. So let me navigate into that projects directory. /projects.
There you go.
And then what do we call it? K8. And I'm hitting the tab key because it has, I guess, IntelliSense. I'm going to run the commands below. Git remote.
Do you need to get init first?
I don't think I do. Do I? I think because I already have it.
Find out.
I suck at Git, so.
There you go.
Now let's see if I do the Git. I thought I just did Git remote add.
Yep. Origin. Yeah.
K8. That's why I'm literally looking at this at the screen right here to tell me what it does. I use JetBrains Writer or something else to help me figure it out. Branch -m main git push -u origin main.
I don't think you have anything.
I always say when that happens.
You've got to add and commit, right?
Yeah, because I already had everything in there. I forgot this step. Git add, git commit, and this initial commit. Now you notice it pushed a bunch of stuff. Typically, I wouldn't want to push the www folders, and I'll take care of those later on. I'll remove them. I should be able to do a git push origin main. And now the new branch is there. Let's go and see it. If I hit refresh here, it should have everything, and there it goes. So let's hide that one now. We're going to go and add the new one. So this is the repo if you want to follow along with us. And I'll add that to the comments so everyone can see it. And let's go take off that banner so you can see everything else I'm working on. Okay, so now we have the repo. Let's take a look at the app. Rich, do you want to use Visual Studio or JetBrains Writer? Your choice. I prefer.
Let's do Writer. Let's see how Writer works. I had Visual Studio open, but I can open Writer.
So I'm going to use the Toolbox app, which just magically disappeared on me. Or just pick the version. We use the early access, even though there isn't an early access now because the product was just released yesterday. So if you don't know, JetBrains Writer is, in my opinion, a slightly better IDE than Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, only because Writer kind of learned, or JetBrains learned from like how developers use things. Antidote I like to say with it is Writer is like Visual Studio and JetBrains ReSharper had a baby. Writer would be the offspring to it. It has everything that ReSharper has in and everything that Visual Studio has in it, and then some. So let's go and open up that solution, and it's the project /A8. And then the way I typically set up my projects, there'll be a couple different folders. Everything generally goes into source. And then there'll be the git ignore, license, and or readme. But there's also two other folders here for SQLite and SQL Server. And for this particular project, it uses a backend database. Now I have two different versions of it. One that uses SQL Server as a database. So if you click in the SQL Server portion, you'll get the scripts to update, to create a copy of it in your own SQL Server. If you don't want SQL Server, you can use SQLite, which works equally as well, and there's instructions in there how to do it. So we're going to open the app and just kind of run through it first so we see how it works. So I click on the contact solution, and I have to trust it, which is a new feature of Writer as well as Visual Studio. It asks you if you want to trust the code that you're pulling in, make sure that you're not running any funky scripts or anything like that. JetBrains Writer, I do have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel that kind of covers it, but we'll give a quick high level of where everything is. So you notice there's no menu here in their new version that was released last week. There is a more consolidated, engineer-friendly display. So less noise, less clutter. So here talks about the current projects. Right now it's using context, which is kind of cool the way it sets up the icon. The icon will look for a favorite icon. So if you're building a website, your FAV icon, and it will display that in there. This is my Git branch currently on main. I can scroll down and see other local and remotes, Git update, push, everything you would expect. And then this is kind of like their build and run. So in Visual Studio, you have that play button, pause. It's kind of here, so you can set up your different build configurations here. And this is just typical menuing. They broke up some of the columns on different sizes. So here are the ones I commonly use: the File Explorer, the current changes, Azure Explorer, and pull requests. And then there's services listed below. So things like Docker, we'll see Kubernetes in here later as we try to figure stuff out. Our unit test, our build processes, when we're debugging the code, all that stuff here. And then over here is kind of like all the ancillary things that I may or may not use. Notice here I also have a plugin that I call the annoying plugin, but it's more so meant to annoy me. It goes and tells me every time I miss the keyboard shortcut. It's like when I went here to click on the terminal, it's going to pop up and tell me, hey, you could have pressed Control-Alt-1. And I'd missed this one time. So it's another quick way to see shortcuts. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the app. It's broken up into a couple of different projects. The main concept of the app is basically a way that you can go and add, delete, edit, and update your contacts. They have first names, last names, etc. That's all covered in the domain where you see the models and the interfaces. There's just contact, has an ID, first name, middle name, last name, email, birthday, and then anniversary, and then two helper or two ancillary properties, addresses, and phone numbers. And then we have a custom function here called phone name that will take the first name, middle name, and last name and kind of create your courtesy name. Everything that I use to interact with the data or APIs is through the logic. So logic has a contact manager, which has everything that interacts with the repository. And I follow the basic repository pattern. So this is going to have all the gets and sets. So get contact async, get contacts. When I first built this sample, I built it without being asynchronous, and then I added the asynchronicity to it. If you're really curious about this project, there's also a lot of streams or a lot of videos on my YouTube channel where I literally built this project on the screen. So the managers talk to the repository, which is listed here. Basically, you'll see the same methods. And the reason why I did this is because you have the choice of choosing SQLite or SQL Server. And I did this for a couple of reasons. One, because some people that use this app might not want to have SQL Server. Maybe they're a Mongo shop or a Postgres shop, or you know, you fill in the blank. This repository pattern allows us to swap out this. So I think we have it currently set up to look at SQLite database. Let's take a look at that. We're going to go to our program.cs in the API and see which one we registered. So we have the SQLite registered. Oh, that reminds me, I need to copy over the database. Do I have the database over there? Let's take a look at the database and see if I have it.
Or can you do a migration to create it?
I could, but I don't know if the migrations is up to date. It was bad.
Gotcha. All right.
It might be up to date. Let's see.
I see our buddy Chris, freestyle coder, just popped in, said, "Oh, hi." What's up, Chris?
Hey, Chris. See, I did bring Dudley out, although he looks like he's in a bunker right now. He knows where he is.
In my hole, happy, underground.
Let's see. I think I have the database in here. Let's just double check. Nope. It could be looking locally. Let me see where I did this. So I'm going to right click in the project and choose secrets, because everything is in a .NET user secret file. And I don't mind showing this one because it's in the instructions on what to set up for the password. So it's looking in C, projects, databases, contact. And that was the old location for it. Let's see if I actually have it on here, because that would stink if I don't have it. No, I don't have the C projects. Oh, but I might have moved that to D. All right, D. Yeah, I just got to change that to D. There's the file right there. Cool.
There you go.
Another reason why you put your configuration settings for your database connection strings in the configuration file, so you can change them. So if I run the API has all the methods for the get, set, delete on the contact. And then we have a web UI which calls the API to generate the contact or to generate it. So in ReSharper for JetBrains Writer, I can start each item individually. Well, they have something called a compact or a compound configuration. So I have this one here that says run web UI. So what that will do is start the contacts API and then follow up and start the web API. So let's go and do that. No, let's actually not do it in run. Let's do it in debug in case there's any other issues, because this is the first time we're doing it. So in a week to 10 days, it's going to open up the project, and it's going to open it up with Chorus on the other screen, because that's where I have Edge running. So that was the first instance before I hit stop and rerun. So the contacts are loaded. And this shows a sample of the contacts, and you're probably wondering why it looks different. I also have an extension that's available on Chrome and Edge called JSON View, which will take any JSON that comes on your screen and kind of pretty print it, which is what it did here, versus seeing just the normal explosion of JSON. So I can navigate through it and, you know, close, collapse, expand items. Then I have the contact viewer page, which has a home, which I'm at. And then I can click on contacts and get the contacts view. Now there's no paging in this. Oh no, it actively refused it. Oh, I know why this happened. This is saying it's looking for localhost 5001. And if you notice here, we did localhost 5901, because I believe in the settings file it has it set, and I probably forgot to update it. Let's go take a look at our web UI. We got to stop everything first. Stop all. Let's take a look at our web UI and seeing what location it's pointing to. Contacts, tools, user settings, and it's going to 5001, which we don't want. Let's see what our projects is telling us to start with. 5900 per 5901. So let's go and change this one to be 5901. And the reason why I'm not using the default 5001 is because, like I said, for this demo, for this project, I use for a lot of different demos. So one of the conference presentations I do uses the Uno platform, and I publish to Android as well as to WebAssembly. And the WebAssembly always does 5001. So unless you change it, so to make it easier, I just changed this one to 5901. So let's go and run these. Check, see if there are any more comments. Nope, no more comments. And the reason why I'm doing this all in real time is to kind of show you that even pros like Rich and I stumble and or forget things or miss certain things when we're running through code. As you see, I literally copied the project in front of you and forgot a couple of different things. So now our contact should work, and here we go. We have the ability to add and edit. I'm going to click edit. I always edit this person. Let's not call him Leo. Let's say his middle name is Rich. Love how he was born. Actually, yesterday was his birthday. Congratulations! It was his birthday yesterday.
How old am I? 22 now. Yay!
Yeah. This is it's funny because I took this because that's my son's birthday, and I probably did the demo and did it. So save it. Save works. And now we see that. We go back to the API, refresh it. Should see somewhere in here. There it is. It's now Rich. So we're good. The app works. So let's go there. Stop it. Close you since we don't need you open anymore. Now ready for the next part, which is something I really don't know how to do. So we are going to figure it out together. So this app is broken up into three different pieces, basically: a database, an API, and a web UI. So in a typical world, let's see if I think I have documentation in here. Oh, I don't. Let me bring you to a kind of a repo that shows the overall flow of the app. I think if I go to MSCC workshop, source, start, diagrams. Nope, I only show the classes. Bummer. Where else is it? It's probably in the other workshop. This one, the app from scratch workshop. Here it is. So this is what our application kind of looks like. It opened up on a different window again. So we have our web app that talks to an API. The API talks to the logic, domain, and then goes back to the data. Technically, this arrow really should be going this way. So in a containerized world, we would want to typically put this in a container, put this in a container, and then the database in a container. Since we're using SQLite, it might make sense for this to stay here. If we switch it over to SQL Server, then we can put that in the container. Rich, what do you think we should do?
I think at first let's put SQLite in that API container, knowing that the storage is probably going to be ephemeral, and whatever changes we make to people's names are probably going to be blasted away when we kill the pod. And then let's get fancy. I think the first thing we need to do, Joe, is make it work. Make it work better. Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, we're going to probably need to copy those files in here. So in Visual Studio, you would right-click on the API project and choose, I think it's Add Docker Support or Docker file. It's midway through the menu. In Writer, you choose Add New and then do Docker file or Docker Compose file, depending on which ones you want to do. Let's try with Docker file and see. So it's going to create a Docker file and then a Docker ignore for me. So it did that, and it built a API project that says expose port 80 and port 443. We can do that. I think that's fine. This is basically going to tell us it's going to create a work directory for the app, use the image from the Microsoft Container Repository, .NET ASP 7.0. And it's going to create a work directory app. That's basically where it's going to put our compiled libraries and say in this container, we want to expose port 80 and port 443. Port 80 is used for HTTP, and port 443 is used for HTTPS. Next step is going the build step, which is what we see here. This is the base image. This is the build image. So it says, take from the Microsoft Container Repository, .microsoft.com, .NET SDK version 7.0. You're going to look for a work directory called source. And then from there, you're going to copy the API project, the SQLite project, the domain project. I can technically remove this since we're using the SQLite, but for now, let's just keep it. In a real version, we would just we would drop that. The logic, the data, you notice it doesn't have the test projects in there because it knows we don't need the test projects. And then it's going to run a .NET restore on it and then copy all the files, basically everything from this directory over. Create a work directory in the source/component or context API, and then run .NET build. It's going to do a release build. After that's done, it's going to publish it using the .NET publish command for this project to this particular folder. So here, got what image to use. We're going to build it. Then we're going to publish it. And then the final is going to take the publish file and copy it into our base image. So if this works correctly, we should have a working container. So
now, Joe, do you want the API to be the entry point, or do you want the web UI to be the entry point there?
I was thinking we were going to create a separate container for the web and a separate container for the API.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Only because you might want to scale each of them differently.
Exactly. Yeah. Ostensibly, it could all be run in one, but the whole point
I mean,
of this is
for this, for what we're doing, yes. But if we want to be semi-realistic, let's put them separately. So let's start Docker desktop. You notice I did, or probably didn't notice, I hit Windows space. I'm using PowerToys run command, which emulates like the Apple Spotlight control. So I'm going to open up Docker desktop just to show you I don't have this API published, and if I do, I'm going to delete it. I have a container running SQL Server and a container running my blog, and that's it. No other hidden random values.
Nothing up the sleeve.
Nothing up my sleeve. There is this contacts because I did try to deploy it earlier, but I will delete it. Bye-bye. And then all the others are just other experiments that I've done. So let's go and build this. So let's go and remove this. Those are the old versions that I played around with earlier today. So I'm going to right-click here and choose either run or debug. Since I didn't make any modifications to it, I'm going to trust that it knows what to do and click run. So here you notice the Docker services window came lit up. Let's close you see it's preparing for deployment right here. And then it's showing all in two, basically prepared to deployment. Now it's pulling the images. So it's pulled down the first image, which is on line 1. Now it's pulling down the second image. Now it's in the build step. So it's basically running everything in this section. And it built it. Now it is creating the new container, and now our container is up and running. So if I did a .NET run, I would get this effect. So let's see if that works. And I said if because I know 100% it's not going to work. I think our URL was going to be localhost because it's locally. And then we're going to go with, I don't remember if it was API or not. I already forgot what the API was. Did I prefix it with the word API or not? No, I didn't. So it should just be contact slash. Oh, where'd you go? Come on, Edge. So when you stream, your computer slows down just a tad. Contacts slash, that should be good enough. I think I'm going to get an error here. Oh, got to fuse to connect. Try HTTPS. Yes, local host. Huh, where did it fail?
HTTP on port 80?
I mean, I can do that, but that one failed also.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, it's not started. Or at least Docker. Oh, that's the images. Yeah, it started and running. Let's take a look at it. And it's got the same thing. Let's make sure the ports are open. Gonna inspect it. It says, oh, it only has port 80. Let's go and do that. Let's go here and do HTTP and HTTPS. That looks a little bit better. Oh.
Ooh.
Let's see. .NET version. API. Oh, it says ports are not bound. I don't know what that means, but that's probably not good.
Probably, yeah.
Checking the comments. Sometimes viewers notice a thing or two that was missed. It's nothing in there. It says exposed port 40 and 80. I'm at a loss. What is missed? All else fails. Restart the container. Okay, it says it's up and running.
Right. I wonder if it, do you have too many other things using those ports? Do we need to reassign them to some random values? Or semi-random values?
That could be. Let's just going to check this and come back and says it's running. Right now I'm in a terminal inside of that container. See if the whole project.
This terminal is in the Docker desktop. You're out of Rider now, right?
Yes. Yeah, I can go inside the Rider one. Debug. CBNet 7. Project's there. What did I miss? App, build, release. I don't see myself missing anything.
You've got your app folder right up there. Okay.
Yeah, it says
Okay.
start off with app, release, copy from publish to the app. Maybe I gotta go to the app. Might as well stay in Rider. I just created a terminal in Rider. So I'm in the app directory. Oops. This is not what I wanted to do. Where did my terminal go? I left the terminal window, went somehow. Oh, there it goes. I'm in the app folder. I don't know why this isn't doing it. Let's see, .NET run. Oh yeah, there's no SDKs, which makes total sense. Well,
Hold the image, right? Should have.
Yeah, I'm in the containers API or contacts API. And all else fails. Let's Google it with Bing.
Google Big Machine.
Or file ASP.NET API not exposed. If that helps. It's an old one. How to containerize. Let's see what we did. Apparently what we did wrong was get Bing AI on here. It's not what I wanted. I clicked you. Oh, that's because I clicked that instead of that.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
What programming language? We are using C# right now and Docker containers. Sorry, I don't know how to read Hebrew to pronounce your name.
It might be Arabic.
Or Arabic, sorry. Paco says you say how to do it. Oh, here it is. Okay, that looks right. Let's bring up the screen side by side. Nice little feature of Windows 10. You could just kind of hover over here or do Control Z and pick where you want your windows docked.
That's pretty cool.
Let's hide that. So we have, ignore the version number, that doesn't matter. App, we're exposing those ports. Maybe we need to expose that too. It already did it, but we want 443 in there. We have to do that. Okay. To expose both ports, get all the source, restore it, copy it, build it, publish it. Okay, it looks like everything is the same. See anything different, Rich? Outside of obviously the project names.
Well, yeah, and the version.
Oh yeah.
Focal as build. Okay. What's the focal keyword there mean after the version in line 7?
Oh, that was a pre-release of it.
All right, so we copy, run.net restore, copy, run.net build. Okay, change your work directory. Okay, and build is publish.
I mean, everything looks right.
It looks okay, yeah.
Oh, it's probably the 8080 because I'm not running as an admin. You can't push anything on port 80, I think. So here it says, you can see our container is running local inside Docker. Previously run uses port 5000. So we probably have to tell it to map 8080 to that. So let's go and do that. Where do I do that? Because this just runs it. Well, let's see that. I'm going to stop this.
I think you can do that on the run command, can't you?
Yeah, I can do it on the run command right here. There's a sample for it. But I think there's a way inside when you do the Docker file that you can tell it to do that.
Yes.
So I'm going to rebuild this because we just added that environment column. Ooh, now we get a build error. Path cannot be configured with the use base. I wonder if that was because I added this to it. Try that. Yep, that worked. So let's stop this. And let's see if we run it using that command here. So I'm going to go through my terminal window and choose Docker run IT. I don't know, remember what RM stands for, -P 8080. So what this is saying is map the request from 8080 to the container port 80. And I think it's called context.api. Unknown flag IT. Oh, separate 2 dashes. Unknown flag. That's how old this version is. Let's just do it without the RM and see, because I don't know what RM does anyway. So I could not find the version. What version was it tagged with? You didn't see a label to it. I don't care about the files.
So this other thing I just googly binged, they have a dash Docker run -d-p in the 2 mapped ports. There you go. And then --name.
It's the name part. Docker run requires at least 1 argument. Let's Google the other thing I want to do. Well, let's go back since that article didn't help because everything looked alike. Everything looked correct. My BI deployed, ports not exposed.
Okay.
One of the features should really say that there's no answers, so you don't bother clicking on it.
Yeah. So apparently the first step in learning Kubernetes is learning Docker.
Yeah. I bet you it's because the app configuration here, we're telling it to, here we're telling it that we want to expose these ports. So we have to probably map these ports out to 80 and 443.
Or, yeah, map 80 to that one. Yeah.
Maybe that's it. I'm gonna keep that one open because that looks promising. Answer your question. I prefer using Windows, so you might be able to tell. Apparently, there's a lot of it's a problem.
One thing I like about Windows is this Windows subsystem for Linux. That's nice because I can easily develop a Windows container, or excuse me, a Linux container, but still use Windows as my main OS.
Yeah, I have that installed on here. I just really haven't played with it.
Okay.
I wonder if this expose is what we need to do. If 5901, I believe. Let's rebuild that one. Let's do it from here. Still says it's only listening on 5,000. Local host. One contacts.
So it looks like you can't map ports in this is an old article. You can't map ports in your Docker file, but you need to use Docker Compose to map those through.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you expose the ports in your Docker file, and then you have a Docker Compose YAML. This is a 4-year-old answer.
No, that makes sense.
Much may have changed, or nothing may have changed. And so anybody following along at home, learn port mapping in Docker. We're going to see this again. Or expose that port that it's running on. That's going to punch right through the container to that port directly. But that may get us where we want to go. I need to create the database first, so I'm going to have to do that tonight. By the way, Joe, we've just hit an hour.
Oh, awesome. So
Flies
let's say
when you're debugging.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we will continue this on the.
Wait, before you go, try one thing. Try exposing that port, whatever. What did you have? 55901?
Yeah, expose aware though.
Oh, you exposed it down there. Okay. Did it work?
No.
Okay. well, we'll debug this and come back and look like we know what we're doing.
Let's see what Docker says about it, and then we can stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, because ASP is still looking for that locally.
On 80 ports. Yeah, 443.
I guess we will come back at another time. Rich and I need to get together and figure out the rest of the schedule for this. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you saw that we struggle with it too. Apparently, I didn't know Docker as well as I thought I might have. Thank you all for watching. Tune in or subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll see the next time this is going to be broadcast out.
Thanks, y'all.